Stave stood proudly beside a sooted and stained sheet over a part of the Heresy Cave's rock face. Everyone watched him throw it aside, revealing first a cloud of horrid dust, and then an ornate relief in the stone. It portrayed a familiar-looking group standing side by side with linked arms, their feet surrounded by animals. Tumas, Shar and Comariero remained alive there in the stone, looking out as hopefully as the rest. All bore a perfect likeness, save actually for the sculptor's own image, which was more akin to his pre-Timefall appearance.
"That's beautiful, Staves,"
Lady said. "I think so too," Staves nodded.
"You are better at this than anything else, Meatman,"
Kerma said, stepping forward to get face to face with her granite counterpart. "Looks like we got someone to take care of the castle after all," Boy said. "Nice going, Wonk."
"We need more rocks. This place isn't big enough to make one for Itzy," Staves lamented.
"We've got rocks at home. Haven't you been paying attention?"
"Not really."
"The ship, it's done."
"Is that what you were doing?" "Better hurry along, Staves," Paulo said. "Let's just say it's going to get a little cold out here, man."
"Alright, let's go," Stave shrugged, throwing his hammer away and taking the lead to walk out to the IPA battleship. It now sported a rickety Chancer-built rear section, complete with homemade Tanaka drive. Would it really work? The only way to find out was to throw their ship into deep space and see what happens. Although their first mission was a little less deadly, they needed to take stock of what was happening to Retakot by getting readings from above. Already the day seemed darker. Spring was approaching, yet each day managed to be colder than the last. At least there hadn't been a peep from the IPA, who were probably planning something worse than an ice age. Maybe it all came out as a net win in the end. The Chancers clanked on into their new ship, with a little leftover food and a spare change of clothes each. The dogs and slow shells came too, of course. The cargo shuttle was brought in through a hatch in the roof to park in the middle of the saucer section, the same place everyone gathered around the ship's control station.
"Is this it?"
Talker asked. "It's something, like we talked about," Boy said.
"I'm kinda excited. I think I really want to get out of here," Paulo said. "We don't need you. But I will still miss you," Kerma said to him.
"We've all got stuff to do," Holt said. "And it starts by hitting the button."
"And hoping the computer knows how to fly this for us," Paulo said. "Hold on tight. Might as well just do it."
With that, he pressed a few switches on the control panel, then thwacked a large round button. He half expected nothing to happen. He was half wrong. The ship shuddered, the reactor in the back started singing a raising chorus, and then the whoosh of rockets pushed the whole ship steadily off the ground. Fumiko stepped in and wordlessly changed most of the settings Paulo had gone for. The patched-up saucer swung around to face the cosmos. Then the roughly bolted-on rear engines kicked the craft into orbit over the next minute. Inside, everyone found the nerve to loosen their grip on the controls, walls, stomachs, and each other.
"Now it's just us up here, isn't it?" Staves noted.
"Don't say that," Tocker said. "Let's just do the work," Holt grumbled. Not that he was in any position to do it. The ship entered stable orbit. Then Paulo bent over the controls to gather atmospheric data. Everyone else was just sitting around. This might sound uneventful, but it felt very important for a simple reason. This was the last time they were going to be sitting around together. Holt and Kerma had already put their stuff into the shuttle.
"How are we even here? This feels impossible," Lady said.
Don't let him claim it was the Overlord.
Kerma was quick to cut in, seeing Boy's eyes widen.
I don't know who that being was, and I don't remember well, but I think we killed it. It seems that it was us who made the track to this place. We defied the Kote and found out what is on the other side. More life and more Kote. It was because of all these people the Kote made live together and love each other that it was defeated. I don't know all this Zapper stuff, but it's power. Power to make sure that what you want to do is what happens. Your Overlord liked you very much. That is why you're here. You did what you had to do, and you lived. This is what our tribes must learn.
But those tribes are going to think they have to kill to survive with all this ice, Lady said. The Tetius peoples won't let them in.
Won't they? Holt said. You're forgetting who they're gonna hear the whole story from.
We will manipulate the Zappers and control them,
Kerma beamed, draping herself over Holt. Kinda, Holt nodded. We got a trucking load of work to do, but we've got lots of ideas and a plan. Gonna be hard. We'll be long gone before it works. Gonna start it anyway. We got a planet full of people who haven't eaten enough, have seen too much trucking fighting, and have put up with toxic clouds, blackened skies, and rampaging death robots. And everyone's lost some of their life to that rain that takes your youth away. Last thing this planet needs is an ice age. But we're gonna make sure it really is the last thing. That's the key. We can unite with the tribes, a little at least, if we're all putting in effort towards the same goal. Waiting out the ice, and building up our defenses for when those off-worlders come back for another round. And they will, right?
Once the signals get back to the core, IPA will know what happened, Paulo said. Can't say what they'll do, but from the IPA guys I met, they'll send a lot more next time. Might not have a rogue AI on your side either. I don't know what you can do. Heresy? Just do it all, Stave said.
Pretty much that, Holt said. We know how they operate, and now it sounds like they can't use that mover against us. We just gotta make a planet that can take anything. Underground food, castles, gun robots, and some trucking good umbrellas. We'll make sure Retakot gets what it needs.
For everyone,
Kerma added. Throughout this inspirational soapboxing, Fumiko was sat against the wall, circling her fingers in her hair and staring at the grubby strips of red carpet that skirted around the shuttle dock. There was no doubt about it. Her captors were malignants of the highest order, and were even planning to get even worse. But she didn't feel as angry about that as she was supposed to. Instead, she felt very, very far away from home. She finally stood up when Paulo reported his findings. He had an image of what remained of that forgotten peninsula. It was just a few scraps of blackened rock sticking out of the sea. Further scans imaged the thick clouds above it, whirling in a slow circle. The eastern coast of the supercontinent was covered in dust, which was spreading over the whole planet minute by minute.
Depends on the region. Expect 5 to 10 degrees change, Paulo said. I think your city, Bystone, will be a little worse for wear. In fact, you know a great spot's gonna be the Camariero Plateau.
More power for Pumpkinwell, Holt sighed.
You were right before though. You can make it. The tribes though will need your help. Can't be many of them left after everything. If you want to stand a chance, you need every Rimworlder you can get, so don't let them die.
He wouldn't do that, even if I wasn't here to kill him if he did,
Kerma insisted, possibly romantically. It's an impressive sight, Holt said of the images. Enough to show everyone that the roll-up's come and gone. We'll get it done. And with that said, guess I should stop claiming it, start actually living up to it. Give me everything on a computer and I'll take it down. Satsuki has a load of guys like you who'll sort it out.
Oh, I can't wait to meet her,
Kerma said with a grin. That's the hardest part of this whole trucking thing. Paulo handed Holt a clear, plasticky cuboid. Then it was time for goodbyes all of a sudden. Your outfit was strange, but it got a lot done, Holt said to Boy. My outfit? Boy said, looking down at the spacesuit he was wearing. Never mind. Thanks, Boy. I don't really know where that place you came from is, but it's a real good thing you made it here. I know you'll make it back. Thanks. We couldn't have done it without you either. Yeah. Just big shot connections. Hardly a talent on my part.
I will miss you,
Kerma said, speaking to the dogs.
They'll miss you too, Stave spoke for them. Oh, and Meatman. Even though we will be on different planets, I will always remember your beauty, Kerma said, stroking Staves' stubbly face. I remember it too. When Lady has my baby, we might see it again.
So, when's that happening, Butter? Huntsman asked, unanswered. Holt was about to pull himself into the shuttle, but stopped to look over at Fumiko, who had resumed her post against the wall. Hey, IPA! You know you did the right thing. Thinking about it doesn't change that. You're a hero, sorry to say. I hope you'll see it, he said. Fumiko looked at him with tired eyes, then back to the ground.
Thank you,
she mumbled. You can go with them if you want, Boy said. Fumiko shook her head. Tokka went and sat beside her.
We can make it okay, you know,
Tokka said. Fumiko still said nothing. In front of them, Holt and Kerma clambered into the shuttle. Now they had to enjoy a key design flaw of the IPA battleship. To launch the shuttle, the bridge had to be depressurized, so everyone went back into the narrow living quarters closer to the engines.
Good luck,
Lady said into a panel on the wall. Same to you. Overlord be praised, and all that, Holt's voice said back from it. Then there was a loud clanking as the shuttle bay doors opened, and a bit of rocking as the shuttle's engines knocked the ship about on the way off, although this didn't feel like anything thanks to the gravitovs. The bridge section was gradually filled with air again, and after a few minutes the remaining chances were back in there. It felt far too roomy without the shuttle.
So, which way to pieces?
Lady said, with tears in her eyes.
No point waiting around, Paulo said. Fumiko, can you help?
Fumiko stepped over to the controls.
One bestia. It is in the computer. It is the closest Rimworld. No colony. Just your things, she said.
We really want to get back to our things, Stave said. I used to think it was actually nicer here, but I think I missed Tindra. Cannibal missed it. I think her pups will like it though.
It's okay, Staves. We're finally going home,
Lady bawled, shoving her head into Stave's back in an incomplete hug. Do we have to do anything? Boy asked.
No. We are on the course now, Fumiko said. When we experience relativistic motion, the entanglement will begin. That is all. It is just going to be a long time.
That was easier than I expected, Paulo said. Same here. So what is it? 30 years? Huntsman asked.
30 years Earth. That's like 180 Retakot.
Lovely. So all that pod butter in the back's gonna keep us alive until then?
Yeah, I mean, it's all automatic now. We just sleep as long as we want.
What if something happens to the ship while it's traveling?
Tokka asked.
The pods jettison if there is an emergency, Fumiko said.
Into space?
The ship can explode. Space is safer. Also, you will be asleep. Most people prefer that.
Yeah, sure. So, do we just get in now?
What about the dogs? Staves asked. It's not designed for dogs, Fumiko said. Cannibal came with us. It works, Lady said.
I'll handle it, Stave said. With a click and a whistle, the dogs were at his side. He collected up their sleeping mats and lay them out in one of the long silver beds that lined the bunk rooms. The dogs happily jumped up to sit in them. Staves garnished the scene with the slow shells, then closed down the clear lid of the pod. The dogs looked out, confused.
Let me do it,
Fumiko said, pushing Staves aside with surprising strength, then working some controls. A light passed along the pod, and the dogs seemed unable to resist the call to slumber.
Press the blue button to wake them up. It will happen automatically when you arrive. Or if the ship is going to explode.
Thanks. If you hadn't told us, we'd have to leave you on the outside to work it all.
You have to do that anyway.
You can't sleep as well? I thought you wanted to come with us.
Why did you think that?
Since you didn't go back to Retakot.
Are those my only options?
I don't know, but the way you say it makes me think there's something else.
There is. Everyone has to get in first.
What's that you're spouting, Butter? Huntsman asked, leading the others into the quarters.
Time to sleep,
Fumiko said, pointing at the dogs for an example.
The sooner we sleep, the sooner we'll get there,
Tokka nodded. Guess there's nothing else to do. No food to stay awake anyway, Boy said.
Boy, she wants to stay awake, Staves claimed.
Does she?
Yes, Fumiko nodded.
And we're supposed to let you do that, Butter? Huntsman said with a scowl.
I don't know what you're supposed to do. However, I am not going to travel with you. I will remain awake for now.
For how long? It's 30 years. Or more years, really, wasn't it? Lady said.
I only need a day. There is food for that.
More worried about you shooting us into the sun and taking this ship for a ride, Butter, Huntsman said.
I am not the pilot, the computer is. Just tell it to ignore me if you're worried.
Everyone looked to Paulo, who nodded meekly upon consideration of the idea.
It would be okay if you came back with us, I think, Stave said.
That is not what I think,
Fumiko said quietly. You're gonna kill yourself, that it? Boy asked.
Something will kill me.
Even though living's as easy as just lying down?
You didn't do what I did. You never understood. You can't. So just go home. You do not ever have to think about me again.
A tempting offer, Butter. Just hard to take that on board, Huntsman said. Staves, meanwhile, was climbing into a pod.
Do the blow work, please, he said.
Fumiko stepped over and poked at the controls. The lid closed, and Staves quickly slumped still.
Who is next?
Fumiko asked. We're doing this, Huntsman asked. Boy nodded. We're doing this, he said. Fumiko, you can decide without us, but the door's open. If I don't understand, then I don't understand. Offering anyway, alright? Fumiko didn't respond. She helped Boy into a pod.
I'll see you soon, Boy,
Lady said. Should just be a moment. We're nearly there, Boy said. Following this, Tokka, Lady, Paulo, and finally Huntsman were persuaded into the stasis pods and put to sleep. After half an hour, the clear lids began to become opaque, as if clouds were forming on the glass. With that, the ship was free to take its living cargo into that deep black, chugging away for decades on a mere bucket full of uranium fuel, which was all that remained after the prior battle damage to the engine sections. This left Fumiko effectively alone on the quiet ship. Several pods remained to be filled, but she left the quarters and went to the forwardmost section of the battleship, where there was something of an engineering room. In particular, it had a standard computer. The monitor was on, still displaying pop-up warnings about a fire in the engine columns. Fumiko dragged a chair over and sat down. She began to type.
Specifications of the Explorer pattern battlecruiser. Primary weakness, proximity of heat sinks to engine fuel lines. Recommend attacking rear wings with directed energy beams. Alternately, board on top of the saucer to access key systems and disable the craft. To shield against his weapons, tune generators with the following parameters.
The ship whizzed past the asteroid belt, the OPA's old haunt, Tokka's old home. Back on Retakot, a shuttle touched down in front of the high gates of Bystone. A band of soldiers rushed out and surrounded it with all manner of guns at the ready. "Just me, boys," Holt shouted out as the door opened. "I'll be out in a sec, we got something here." Looking at the shuttle control panel, there were alerts about incoming messages. Something about Explorer pattern battlecruisers, and a whole lot more. About a day later, the battleship's log noted that the airlock had been opened, and promptly shut it automatically. No further incidents were recorded for some 30 years after that. Then, the lights all came on, the heaters fired up, and the lids of the cryopods began to become transparent once again. Paulo was the first to emerge, bursting out of the pod and immediately covering the floor in vomit.
"Every time,"
he muttered to himself. It was then splashed about by Boy's boots as he raced around to check the other pods. There was a little more cryosleep sickness to deal with as biological functions were resumed, but soon all were up and about. The dogs and Slowshells certainly didn't miss a beat, leaping onto Staves and half dragging him out into the quarters.
"We're alive,"
Lady confirmed. "Are we there?" Tokka asked. "Feels the same as before," Staves noted.
The controls. We gotta... Wait, Boy said, looking around one last time. She's not here.
Could investigate the other sections. I'll check the controls,
Paulo said. A quick search revealed the ship to indeed be totally empty.
Okay, on the screen,
Paulo said at the controls. On the screen appeared the image of a green and blue planet, less brown than Retakot, with less landmass too.
Is that it?
Tucker asked.
Can't remember. Boy? Lady?
I don't know what it looks like from up here, do I? Boy said.
If we're somewhere, it must be it, right?
Lady said. It is. Look, Stave said, pointing at the image.
At the top, these bits here. That's where you're from, Lady. Raccoona,
Lady whispered. There was a series of forested islands beside the north end of a large continent.
That means the Ulial Hillicat is in those mountains,
Staves went on, peering closer at the image.
Which was northwest of the battle plains. They got there from the Hillicat temple at Neck of the Sea, so that range over there. Tinder it's here.
He pointed at a green spot on the west side of the nearest continent. You sure? Boy asked.
I remember all the Hillicats, Staves nodded. Now we can put another one wherever we want. Let's go down and tell them the good news. We're here, Lady said, unblinking.
And the good life's down there, so let's drop this orbit and take a look at the Badanat Bada, Huntsman said. Paulo complied, poking the computer to calculate a re-entry course. The ship's underside shielding hadn't been perfectly restored, suffice to say, but it proved enough to punch down through the atmosphere towards the vague spot Staves had pointed out. They came to hover over a field of crops, creating a big circular indent on the stalks below.
Where's your place then?
Paulo asked. Can't see where we are. Doesn't this thing have windows? Boy asked. Up there, Tucker said, pointing at the shuttle doors on the roof.
We can't hover here forever, we're burning fuel,
Paulo said. I'll be quick, Stave said. There was an access ladder you could hook down to get up to the shuttle doors, and after Staves made several failed attempts to get it down with a stick, Huntsman let out a blast from his revolver. The ladder clanked to the ground, and Staves went up. The doors opened, letting in the roaring noise of the engines from outside.
Watch for the gravitoffs,
Paulo warned. Indeed, Staves felt himself suddenly get heavier as he passed the threshold. He kept his grip though, and pulled himself up to stand on top of the saucer. There was a sea to the west, mountains to the south, a pale savanna in the far east, and endless plains of green to the north.
This is definitely it,
he cheered. He pointed out in a direction.
I can see it. The towers. Castle Griffin and the lake. It's that way.
We can't see where you're pointing, Wonk, Boy shouted up. Staves quickly climbed down the ladder, keeping his hand pointing in the rough direction he had identified. He took this display to Paulo.
Go that way,
Stave said. Paulo did his best to input all this as navigation data. The shuttle doors shut, and the ship drifted westwards. Using a forward camera, they were able to see the grey spires of Castle Griffin approach. Colourful banners flew across the city around it, soon to be battered around by the downdraft of the battleship cruising right over them.
It's 20 miles to the crossroads, then over those sharp hills, Boy said, doing some enthusiastic hand motions. We have to land in 2 minutes,
Paulo said.
We're nearly there. Look, the forest of pedants. It looks so small.
The ship carried on until it reached a certain spot that had Boy cawing at the navigation screens.
That's it! Those fields! That's it!
He ranted. Paulo breathed a sigh of relief and set the battleship down near said exciting fields. The impact with the ground shook the vessel, and the familiar clanking of parts falling off echoed throughout the narrow corridors. The reactor powered down, the airlocks opened, and delightfully breathable air flowed in.
We're here! Wonk! We're here! We're home!
Boy cheered, tearing off his spacesuit.
I don't actually live at your house,
Staves mentioned, but Boy wasn't listening. Everyone followed him outside into the sunshine of a Tindran spring. Just a spit from their landing site was a set of dilapidated stone buildings.
It's a mess,
Lady said of it. It's our mess. This is it. We're here, Boy said. Ah, luxury this.
Can see why you'd want to get back to this paste, Huntsman commented.
It wasn't much. I kind of hated it actually, Lady said. But it was always... No, it's what it is now. It's our farm. Our real farm, not in another world. This is it. I don't really understand.
Lady couldn't describe her feelings. Seeing their old home there in front of them made the whole 10 years they'd been gone seem like a dream. That's 1.5 years to you and me. Don't let Staves' aged appearance fool you. Could all that Retakot stuff they'd just hopped away from have truly happened? If so, could they have truly managed to make it back to this stinking farm on the edge of their landlord's rotting estate? Well, the fact that Tokka, Huntsman, Paulo, and a massive steaming spaceship were all there with them was clearly evidence of something. As the gang took a look around the abandoned farmstead, clearly the victim of fire, war, or probably both, Tokka went and sat on a rock beside the flat, empty field nearest the farmhouse. She looked at the nothing there, and at the nothing in the sky, and thought of the nothing she had to do. She let out a very long breath. "Sorry," she said to the sky. "I found you, or you found me, and it all went wrong. It all went away. I'll keep going. I'll make sure it's worth it."
"It is worth it," Stave said from behind her, prompting quite the shock.
"Hey!"
"If you're sad about Shar, then so am I. She didn't want you to be there in the other world, though. She knew it was bad, and she tried to make it better for you. Now, I'm going to do what she did, but here. So you might get a better world after all."
"Thanks, Staves. I think I feel okay here."
"I think they'll want us to help them out on their new farm, but you don't have to."
"Yes, I do."
"Oh, right. Same might apply to me. I don't even like fields."
"What about friends, Butter?" Huntsman said, coming over to give Staves a clap on the back.
Well, they're okay. You're more than a friend though, Starlight."
"That's not what that means, Butter."
"Am I only still your butter?"
"It doesn't. You know something? I thought being here would improve all this. Well, Stavesy, if you want to keep your girlfriend and her boyfriend, you'll have to stick around this vacuum galley and nothing."
"I know. I don't want to go back to the castle anyway. It's been 300 years since I was there now, I think. What do you think, other wonk?"
"I think you're about right," Paulo said.
"This place isn't what you remember. Or maybe it is, I don't know your history. I bet every kid you left behind is grey and wrinkled now. If you're lucky, maybe they'll remember you." "It doesn't matter, does it?" Lady said, bringing Boy over from the house. "We have to use what happened. Shah, everyone, Fumiko. We relied on them. And we lived. Now it's our turn. Because we can't do it just on our own here. We have the quills and the machines and the blowwork. If we make a farm, it will be the best farm in the world. Not that it wasn't before," she added, conscious of Boy.
"Pretty sure that's right," Boy said. "This'll be easy. We just gotta do what we've been doing that whole time for the whole crusade. Only now the food's all ours. No death robots, no space pirates, and no Dad messing this place up. Overlord be praised, I've had my answer. Time to do something more than just surviving and fighting. Tindra's gonna see what we did. And they might actually make me a knight." Boy became very distracted by this thought, and said no more. They all stood there in the warm breeze, looking at the weeds germinating in the loamy fields in front of them. Some quality mass, with nothing rolling but the clouds as far as the eye could see, and indeed much further than that. They had been in the last castle earlier that day, the tomb, the sanctuary, the den of heresy on a planet consumed by endless chaos being enveloped by a chilling dust. Now they were at Boy's house, amid flowers and below blue skies. In reality, the Retakot they had known that morning was 3 decades gone. There, the Roll Up Chronicle carried on. Here, the closest thing was the dogs rolling about in the long grass. There was a lot of work to do if Boy's old farm was going to get started. But it was early spring, and they had a whole lot of scrap metal to play with, and a whole lot of cosmic magic tricks to help out. Boy and Lady were home. Staves got pretty close. Tokka could finally relax. Huntsman was out of the pirate game for good, and Paulo had nowhere in the galaxy to go, but the planet he designed himself seemed like a pretty good spot to settle down, and he had a crew to do it with, too. That Rimworld was so far from the rest of civilization in time and space that indeed all of the other stuff might as well have been a dream. Tindra, pieces, brought a new life to those who had fallen through the grinding gears of the old, and given how much our Chancers had to do to get here, it's safe to say that there wasn't anything on old One Bastia that could stop them now. Epilogue. You can imagine the locals were curious about what was going on at Boy's farm. Few in the capital failed to notice a cosmic ship flying overhead, and this brought about a great panic. You must understand that the last time this had happened, it was the beginning of a brief and messy war. Therefore, it is only natural that a couple of days after the Chancers touched down, a massive column of metalled soldiers came up the overgrown road to the farm. At the head were a few riding stout horse descendants, with bejeweled armour of a familiar design. It was the armour of the IPA. For a second, stomachs sank, until it became clear that these were no IPA agents. They were agents of an organisation with just as much power around these parts though, the Holy Kingdom of Tindra. "Encircle!" the leading figure called, waving overhead a familiar-looking chunk of metal. It was the very same weapon that Staves was rushing to pick up from the pile beside the ship, a spacer charge rifle, or blowwork gun to be more accurate. The soldiers behind this fellow, armed in the traditional style, quickly ringed off the farm and its new inhabitants. They gave the landed ship a wide berth. "So, you wish to negotiate this time, is that it?" the horsed noble called. "My lord, I'm so sorry, my lord," Boy grovelled. Probably the correct protocol, but the others weren't playing along. "State your name, cosmic envoy." My lord, I'm Boy of the Redmarsh Company. We return from the Crusades." The entire circle of troops had a good laugh, the noble foremost among them. "Incredible wit, knave. Which crusade were you on, out of interest?" "I was called upon by Lord Griffin to seek the cosmic Hillicat and return it. It lies now in our flying ship." The noble eyed the ship and Boy. The earnest claims seemed fantastic, yet not entirely impossible. "So, you know who I am?" the noble said. "My lord, it's been 300 years and more since we left. I'm afraid the fate of the Holy House well, I don't know." "I am Lord Griffin the 16th, the noble proudly proclaimed. The soldiers hailed him on cue. "And you're clearly referencing the tale of my grandfather. Mad, he was." "No, he was right," Boy said, meeting the noble's powdered gaze. "We're from the world of Retakot, a land in a different time, and, well, we had to fight. We lost Lord Griffin and everyone, really. It's just me, my sister, and the Bard." "The Bard?" At this, Stave stepped forward, brandishing his rifle. "You! And that!" the noble shuddered. He waved for an attendant to come up to his horse, who knelt down to become a convenient stool for dismounting. Griffin the 16th walked right up to Staves and looked over him with fascination. "It can't be. The dancer, the poet, the lost prophet," he murmured. "That's me, I think," Staves nodded. "So much was written, and the paintings in the hall. There can be no doubt. And your weapon, that's a cosmic thunder lever." "No, it's a blowwork rifle. That's what the cosmic people call it." "How did you get it?" "They had them in a war. The crusade. That man isn't lying to you. I can write down what happened if you want to know it all." And you, who are you?" Griffin said, now stepping past Staves towards the others gathered behind. "We don't mean no trouble, Butter," Huntsman said. What was that?" "We come in peace. I don't know what to say here, Butter.
I think he wants you to kneel first, Paulo suggested.
Who are you?
Griffin demanded.
For you, my lord, I won't mess about. Name's Manny. I'm from a spot called Ratio in the core. Same kind of place the guys who tried to conquer you came from. For me, though, I didn't have things that good. Ended up getting into pirating over at your neighbour's system. Butternut went up, down, all around. Somehow I'm here. Your man over there is right. And Staves, he's a great shout for getting the full story. He'll make it interesting for you, Butter. Right now, all I want to hear is that you're not going to kill us.
I'll decide that when I'm ready, Griffin snapped. And you there, girl, you're a raccoona. Yes, my lord, Lady said, getting right down into the dirt. And there's only one way a raccoona slave girl could be coming out of a cosmic ship, my lord, Boy insisted. Who is your master? Griffin demanded. I suppose it's my brother?
What? What madness is this?
We don't have masters, Tocker interjected. Another round of laughter erupted.
I'll have the full story out of all of you. To the castle, Griffin ordered.
With this, the crew were taken to Castle Griffin over the next 2 days. Along the way, the road was marked with pieces of plaster steel, bearing murals and inscriptions. They told of an epic battle between the Holy Kingdom and invaders from the cosmos. In the town square there was a statue of Griffin XIV, surrounded by humanoids with no faces, with heads facing the sky. Townspeople were praying to them, although everyone got out of the way quickly as the troop of troops came through. Close to the castle, the twilight was illuminated by blowwork lights on tall wooden poles, with pipes running over the outer walls towards the main citadel. I bet the heresy is much worse now, Staves noted as they walked past it all. It's all because of our crusade. I think I'm in with a shot, Boy said, knighthood still on his mind. I'm not sure about what we're getting into, Paulo said. You created this planet. You can be whoever you want here, Tocker said. Can't exactly prove that though, can I?
Got your eyes closed, Huntsman said. They're all about religion, Butter. You don't need proof. I believe ya, and that's all the start you'll need.
Castle Griffin was decorated with plenty of cosmic memorabilia. It was mostly salvaged ship parts that the Chancers recognized from their recent practical experiences. There were also plenty of weapons and blowwork devices in use by the guards and staff. A large dinner was held, at which Griffin wanted to hear everything the new arrivals had to say, caring not for the contradictions in the stories of each. In a truly Tindran style, contradictions were just taken as equal truths. That another world existed, battling the cosmic people just like pieces, was no contradiction of the Holy Church's prior statements on the importance of pieces. Indeed, everyone knew that cosmic people existed, despite the texts claiming otherwise. It was just that sort of religion. One prone to sanctioned heresy, you could say, as castle insiders like Staves clearly knew. And by the way, there really was a portrait of Staves on the dining room wall, thinner and with teenage features, his hair splayed out in thick spikes. Staves didn't even look at it the whole time he was there. Over the course of several more days, the legend of the Retakot crusade was cemented. Boy was given formal ownership of his farm and the surrounding lands, and was made not a knight but a lord. Likewise, Lady became a lady in the official sense, becoming the first Raccoona noble, a step towards ending the constant warring on the kingdom's northern border. Huntsman got a noble title too later on, not that he cared even slightly, or even noticed. He was a farmer now, as was Tocker, although both of them were regularly called upon to consult at Paulo's new workplace. In an annex of the castle, he was put to work as the kingdom's Magi of Cosmic Insight. Basically, he had to teach people how to make spaceships. The planet lacked most of the industry and materials to actually do it, so it was slow progress. Yet plenty of other engineering breakthroughs were brought to the kingdom along the way. He never actually told them he designed the entire planet they were living on.
and simply laughed away his ability to quell earthquakes by tapping on a strange translucent device from the cosmos. Of everyone, Staves was promoted the highest, becoming rather involved with the Holy Church's dealings within the Griffin family and the de facto High Bishop of Tindra in later life. His writings were very influential, most of all his prophecy and his veneration of the cosmic Hilokat, the entanglement manifold. 240 pieces years later, after his death, this would prove very important. For this prophecy spoke of how the cosmic people would return. It told of the second great crusade to Retakot, where the battle for both of the Overlord's chosen realms would be fought in the depths of space, centuries in the future. The prophecy was well remembered throughout those centuries, and preparations were made. Once it was time for a new band of heroes to sail for Retakot, a great network of ships was assembled. I say network because as ship after ship launched from the planet's surface, they latched onto a growing ball of other craft, clustered around the old IPA battleship at the very middle. You see, they only had one entanglement manifold, but as long as it was attached to a single continuous object, that was enough to take as much mass as they needed. Therefore, the Pieces battle fleet, chained together in a clump, was dragged on a very long journey towards a distant speck of light. Boy, Lady, Tokka, Huntsman and Paulo watched this on a screen inside Boy's very large farmhouse, and had plenty to reminisce over. No, they didn't go back themselves. Lady was the youngest of them, and she was in her 60s, which until very recently had been an unattainable age for Tindrans. They'd done their bit for the bits and all that butternut. So what was all this? This story was the difference between that hopeful future of friendly crusade and one's unknown. The work of the Chancers eventually brought about the beginning of a new age, the age of the Rim. The Rim that would go on to have its own Rim much later. But we can't get into that. Those stories go on forever. Ah yes, that's the thing about Roll Up Chronicles. They aren't likely to end, and they're always beginning. I think we can all agree though that as far as the Chancers are concerned, they deserve a break. We'll leave them in peace, in life and death, far from home and starting homes anew. Well done, bloody Chancers. Wouldn't have been a Roll Up Chronicle without you.